Dear ladies and gentlemen, friends and family of the IAF, it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you all here today in Paris to recognize the 70th anniversary of the International Astronautical Federation. I'm happy to see that so many of our IAF family members have decided to join us here for this very special moment. And I can only express my deepest gratitude to all of you for your continuous support you have shown to the Federation over all these years. We are really happy to be able to welcome past presidents, present presidents, future presidents of the Federation, vice presidents of the Federation. We are honored to be joined by heads of agencies. Thank you very much, Mr. Baptiste, to take the time to be with us, Mr. Asadov from Asacosmos, and we still should be joined later also by the Director General of ESA, Mr. Josef Aschbacher. So the IAF is called International Astronautical Federation. What would be such an event without astronauts? I'm also very pleased to welcome my dear friend from Austria, Franz Viehböck, representing the astronaut side of our community. 2022 is actually the 71st year of the existence of the IAF, and as you know, we had planned to have this event already end of last year. However, the COVID-19 pandemic forced us to postpone, and now we are even more happy to be able to meet again today and take advantage of the fact that so many of you are present this week or next week in Paris for our traditional IAF spring meetings that will take place next week. While today we are gathering to look back to our rich history of the IAF and also undertake an attempt to look forward for the next 70 years, our thoughts are also with all those who are impacted and suffering at these times in Ukraine. Today's event will be divided in two parts. The first one focusing on the IAF history through the voices of some of its prominent leaders, while the second one will look to the future of the Federation through the imagination of some of its present and future space leaders. The IAF legacy will continue to inspire, and we will continue to be inspired. I'm now very proud and happy to introduce you a video that is retracing the steps of the International Astronautical Federation and the space community's main milestones throughout the past 70 years. Please enjoy the video.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
70 years of space history and of the history of the IAF in 3 minutes. That was a challenge. So I take it that you enjoyed this video. It is now my great pleasure to kick off this event by asking to come up on stage for her welcome remarks to you, the IAF President, Professor Pascal Ehrenfreund.
Yes, thank you very much for this really great start and this video, which really shows this amazing history. And I think we will get to hear more because we have a lot of former presidents and vice presidents here and people which actually shaped the International Astronautical Federation. Distinguished guests and dear participants, it's really my great honor to be here today in my role as IAF President to address you at this very, very special occasion and in such a really, really amazing venue. First and foremost, I would really like to express my gratitude to all of you and to the members of the community that you really came here today and that you are recognizing with us and celebrating with us this anniversary. As you know, we have tried before, and I think it is also a great occasion right now to combine it with our spring meetings, which will be the first time after 2 years in virtual and remotely organized that we meet actually in person again at the spring meeting. So, as current IAF President, I want to express my deepest concern about the current tragedy unfolding in Ukraine, created at the time of fierce international tensions. The IAF was able to build and offer always a very safe platform for the worldwide space community to meet, to engage, to discuss, exchange and connect. And inspired by these same values and principles for the last 70 years, the Federation always firmly believes that in times of conflict and disagreement, a continuous dialogue is the foundation of a peaceful coexistence, cooperation, and de-escalation. So the global space community has achieved together outstanding progress in low Earth orbit and outer space and is now really challenged to find a way to help de-escalate this dramatic situation. You have seen these wonderful pictures and a little bit of history in how much? 2 minutes or probably 1.5 minutes. Amazing what we have achieved. And I consider it as my obligation as the IAF President to speak up in such an unprecedented and unexpected time. But I also accept that I'm not able to speak in the name of all of our 433 members from 72 countries. I can just promise, and with me, certainly many of the IAF community, that the space dialogue in particular now and at our upcoming IAF spring meeting will have a special effort, and we want that it contributes to a peaceful resolution of the current conflict as well as all the other global challenges the world is actually facing today. So today, as Christian mentioned, we are here to celebrate our legacy, but also to look at the future. And we will have 2 panels, which were already introduced, where we're actually really looking also in the next 70 years. And I think this will be a very, very nice exercise. So the history of the Federation is a history of constant growth. You have seen that. I didn't even know that. 1988, 100 members, you know, then already soon 300 in 2016 or 2000, and now we are 433 members from 72 countries from all over the world and covering all domains of the space sector. And while we are extremely proud of our rich history, we also look to the future as we are constantly expand our reach to include also developing and emerging space nations, new communities, and in particular, of course, the next generation of space engineers, scientists, and policymakers. And the annual International Astronautical Congress, the Federation's really most important and premium event, has become over the years really such a family reunion where all these communities actually meet. And it has been like a very, very obligatory meeting point for all space actors within our network. So through its outstanding and rich program covering all aspects of the space science and exploration, technology, applications, operations, infrastructures, but even topics like space and society, including and integrating the space community and with other non-space sectors, but also with society at large. This is really something what is really important and makes the IAF community grow. And we are very, very happy that we have especially the young generation and a significant participation from emerging countries integrated in the recent IACs and in our community. So who would have thought that 70 years ago, that is where the very first IAC took place in Paris in 1950, which gathered 20 delegates from 8 countries. We saw some pictures in the video, would have grown to become the world's largest space event, attracting really thousands of participants. And over the past 70 years, the IAF has organized the IAC in 34 countries and 56 cities, ensuring really this constant dialogue between space nations and providing also a forum for the exchange of experiences and ideas, as well as also having this cultural link in support of technology that is opening the universe to humankind. So for the past 70 years, the IAC has covered all space sectors and topics and offered everyone the latest space information and the developments in academia and industry, networking opportunities, contacts, and really also potential partnerships. For 70 years, scientists and researchers and engineers have presented their latest work and have kept up to date on global developments. In short, for nearly a century, the IAC has been and continues to be the one place and time of the year where the world comes together to explore and dive into the various fascinating activities of space. So today we are celebrating this milestone here in Paris, home of the first ever IAC, and you have also seen the pictures. So it is actually the home of the Federation itself, and it will also be hosting in a few months from now the 73rd edition of the annual International Astronautical Congress. So we are coming somehow full circle back home and ready to kick off another 70 years leap around the sun to the moon and beyond. And since I took over the presidency of the Federation in 2019, I made it my firm intention and my obligation to guarantee a sustainable further development of the Federation, considering and responding to global challenges ahead of us. And we have started a lot of different activities, even in this difficult time of a pandemic worldwide. We try to really keep up and engage with our community and even beyond. And we worked really, really hard in making sure that the next 70 years, the IAF will really continue to blossom. So since this is the last year of my mandate, please allow me also to say that leading the Federation as its president, and allow me also to mention as the first female president ever, has been a real absolute honor and pleasure. And I'm sure that many of my predecessors will express the same today. However, we must not forget that all that came before, what came before, and those who have shaped the IAF, and many of them are here today, and that it actually a lot of work, hard work from many people of making sure that the Federation thrives. So through the outstanding leadership of my predecessors, my colleagues, vice president and previous vice presidents, the executive director, as well as really the enthusiastic engagement of our entire IAF volunteer community and the most professional work of the Secretariat. Over the past years, the Federation has really developed into the world leading space advocacy body, including all leading space agencies, industry, societies, associations, university and institutes worldwide. And I'm proud of what the Federation has achieved, and I'm excited to see what the future has in store. So with these words, let me close by saying that as history has shown, none of us can achieve what we want alone. And exactly in this precise moment, more than ever, we need to reinforce our efforts and not let anything stand in the way of what we can achieve together. Let us be confident in the intellectual strengths, ingenuity and abilities we possess all together, and let's forge a world where space and peace prevails. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for your inspiring words, and thanks to all your leadership over these past years. It is now my distinct pleasure to ask to come on stage for his welcome remarks, incoming President Clay Maury.
Thank you, Christian. It's wonderful to see you all again in person after so long. And to be back here in Paris, my favorite city in the world, after 3 long years, it's really wonderful to be here. I guess I'm the president of the future. This is maybe I should be wearing a Star Trek outfit. I was wondering as I looked at these wonderful images of these dinners from long ago in the early 50s, if I would fit in today. Maybe I still have the coat and tie. We're not wearing anything too exotic. We don't look like we're from the future, but of course we are. This is a wonderful opportunity to look back and to look forward. To look back as we are standing, of course, all of us on the shoulders of giants, the people that came through this organization, the people that were involved, who had the vision to start the IAF, to create, as Pascal said, a place for peaceful dialogue. This is critical, and of course I share her thoughts as we stand here today with conflict and war raging, that we can have a place to come to discuss, particularly on important matters of space, and we know space is much more involved in these conflicts today in a lot of ways, that we can have a place for peaceful discussions where we can de-escalate, and this is really very critical. And so I'm glad that the IAF exists today, that we still have this as a forum, and I salute the leaders here in France and other countries that accepted the invitation to come to join the Federation at that time and to grow the organization. I think they would, by the way, be quite astounded by what we've achieved. I think if you were to go back and have dinner with these probably mostly gentlemen, unfortunately, Pascal, at that time, that they would probably be quite, I think, appreciative of what we've built here as an organization. That we now have 433 members, of which many now are from industry. I'm proud, by the way, to serve as a president coming from industry. I look forward to engaging with all the institutional organizations, space agencies, actors, museums, nonprofit organizations, space societies, all the folks that make the IAF what a wonderful organization it is today. But I think they would be quite proud to see where we've grown the organization to see. And I was thinking, Christian, about this. How many abstracts do you think in total over 71 years? It's got to be close to 100,000 or more. Somewhere between 80 and 100,000. I was going to say, my wife said, just say tens of thousands and be done. Yeah. So, I mean, it's incredible to think about all those abstracts, all of the thought that went into them, all the technical work. And you know, this organization is built on that. It's built on those abstracts. It's built on the technical sessions, which is super important for our future, that we continue this. We create a forum where people can come and present ideas. And really, I think as we look at this, you know, we have a flagship event now that's basically doubled in size over the past 10 years, where we have thousands of people. And I remember the challenges we discussed just a few years ago. Where will we host this? If we grow so much, if we grow above 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 attendees, where will we host this event? And in fact, we have record numbers of organizations now applying to host the event. We are, of course, riding a wave of new space, as you call it, here now, and which is a wonderful thing to be a part of. But I think even more than that, we're seeing a new generation step forward. And for me, the most important thing that we carry forward with this is to engage that new generation. We now have ICs where we have more young people under 35 attending than older people, which, by the way, when I first attended my first IEC in Washington back in 1992, it was not the case. I was one of the young people in my 20s then, and to see it now and to see the engagement, the enthusiasm, the vibrant nature of this organization, and I think it bodes well for our future, for both the organization and the conference, that young people are coming, that they want to present and be involved. Of course, organizations like SGAC are a key part of that, but also the IAF Youth Grant Program and other things we've done along the way to bring forward the next generation. And so when I look to the future, when I look 70 years from now, I hope we can still have that. We can still have the youth coming to bring fresh ideas, to bring a vibrancy to this organization as we look to that future. Just to say, and a nod to my former boss, John Eve, who comes up just after me, I'm super proud of the work he did to install these 3G principles to get us generational, geographic, and gender diversity in the organization. We still have a long way to go, I think, particularly on the gender piece, Pascal. We have a ways to continue, but we've made great progress, and we're going to continue to make great progress. And it's really my pleasure to help lead the organization for the next few years, and I hope that when 70 years from now they look back, they can say, hey, we were standing on the shoulders of these people as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Clay, for this great outlook in the future and for all the exciting words and plans we have. Today we are gathering here in Paris, in the City of Lights, to celebrate our 70th anniversary, but 2022 has more to show here in Paris. As you know, in September this year, Paris will host the 73rd edition of our International Astronautical Congress, and it is now my distinct pleasure to welcome on stage for his welcome remarks Mr. Philippe Baptiste, the President of the French Space Agency CNES, which is the host of this IC here in Paris. Please, Philippe.
Oops. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's morning already. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure, really, to open this IAF spring meeting today in Paris. Well, as you have noticed, the weather is great, so please enjoy the weekend. I understand that a lot of work remains to be done on the next week. Early next week, a lot of technical work has to be carried on, but the weekend will be great, so please enjoy the weekend. And on top of that, as you might know, I mean, in France, we have decided that the COVID is behind us, so that's good news. Well, at least for the moment, so everything is open. So again, that's the right time to really enjoy, and of course, we hope that the situation will be the same for the IAC in September. Of course, enjoy again, but as it has been mentioned before, also take the time to think to our Ukrainian friends, engineers, scientists, but also friends They are living not far away from here, 2,000 kilometers away from this place. And only a few days ago, their life was very similar to the lives that we are having today. So this is always something that we have to think about, I think. Coming back to IAF and ISC, we are, of course, very excited to host ISC, and I can tell you that, well, the CNES team is, under Lionel guidance, is working very hard, jointly with IAF and ISC to really make a great success of this next event. So as it has been mentioned, the first edition took place in Paris in 1950. At that time, the 20 delegates from 8 countries gathered at La Sorbonne. So La Sorbonne is a very nice place, even perhaps nicer than this one. It's a little bit different. There is also the grave of Richelieu, which is a very interesting place to be. You have to visit it. So in 20 years, we need to come back to Sorbonne. Huh? That's something we... So they decided to create this annual meeting of space actors. 2 other editions have already taken place in the French capital in 1963 and 1982, and another one took place also in Toulouse in 2001. So, as I am a computer scientist, I computed that every 20 years you come back to France. So next time will be in 43, 42 or 43. So this means that basically, if you are, well, let's say, well, above 50 like me, I mean, that's the right time to come. Next one will be in 20 years, so it's a little bit far away. So we really look forward to see you in Paris. The selection will be very challenging for the program committee, almost 5,000 abstracts from 97 countries. This sets a new record for ISC in terms of submission. This will be tough work for the program committee, of course, but we all know that when you work this program committee, at the same time it's a lot of work, but it's also the best place to be because you know everything, you will see everything, so that's very exciting too. So for those of you who will be working next week on this selection, well, I really wish you a happy 2 days on this topic. On the exhibitor side, I would say that just that 80% of the stands have already been sold, so that's already good news. Many requests are still being processed. So we can really be, well, legitimately expect to break some kind of participation records in Paris. And this basically reflects the incredible development of the space activities, of the space sector in the world, with everything that's changing today. I mean, not only, I mean, we also, as we have of course science, we have big companies around and they are very welcome and they are coming to Paris, but we have also many startups around. As you might know, I mean, Paris is a very exciting place for these small companies that are involved in the new space, so basically that are emerging today, and they will be there too, so that's really this will be a very interesting event. Just to conclude, I mentioned that IEC 22 motto is space for all. This all is really echoes several previous editions which have highlighted the great purpose of space activities with the notion of humanity, mankind, needs, benefits, peace, progress. And ISC 22 takes up these ideas by really emphasizing the place of future generations. There will be many students in Paris. 40% of abstracts are coming from students, so that's really good. And it's a way to show that our confidence in these young people and to encourage an optimistic spirit in this difficult time. Thank you very much, and so see you in Paris very soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Philippe, and to all our opening ceremony speakers. It is now time to prepare for our first panel of the day, which will focus on 70 years of connecting space people. And I would like to invite the following prominent panelists and great former and present leaders of the Federation to join me up here on stage. Former IAF President Karl Deutsch. Maybe we do it left to right. Yes, former IAF President Jim Zimmermann. former IAF President Jean-Yves Le Gall, and current President Pascal Ehrenfreund, please. Dear guests, former IAF vice presidents were not able, unfortunately, to join us in person here today, but we will hear from them through video messages. And these are former presidents Johannes Ortner, Alvaro Azkaraga, Marcio Barbosa, and Kiyoshi Higuchi. Work? Yes, thank you. This anniversary is first of all a recognition of the hard work of all our predecessors who will share with us now stories, lessons learned for the future, examples, but not only for the International Astronautical Federation, but for all space people in general and for all space activities of the future. And we will go chronologically. Therefore, I would like to start with our first speaker, Dr. Johannes Ortner, IAF President from 1986 to 1988. Johannes was elected in Innsbruck, actually, at the IEC in Innsbruck in Austria in 1986, and he led the federation through the IECs in Brighton in 1997 and in Bangalore in 1988. And in the late 80s, during the presidency of Johannes, the IAF implemented a massive revision of its technical committees. The new structure recognized the changes in space technology area that had occurred over the years, and it set up the terms of reference for committee responsibilities, membership, and procedures. Let us now listen to our former IAF President, Johannes Ortner. Need to turn a bit around.
Cordial congratulations to the IAF to the 70th anniversary. During my presidency, we counted 90 members. Now there are more than 400 member institutions at the IAF. And this is greatly thanks to Christian Feichtinger and his team who work so hard for the future of the IAF. I was elected president of the International Astronautical Federation in 1986 during the Congress which was held in Innsbruck in Austria. And the timing was perfect because this was just 2 months before Austria became a full member of the European Space Agency. And I have worked about 13 years as managing director of the Austrian Space Agency to make it happen, to really guide Austria into the ESA. 2 congresses were held during my presidency. The first one in Brighton, in England. The host was the British Interplanetary Society, and it was just really exciting because, first of all, we had a problem with the representative of the government who didn't show up. So this was a real bad omen for the opening ceremony. And really, 2 days, the Congress was just lasting 2 days when a terrible tornado storm came about. And this storm really destroyed windows of the hotels. It caused a complete breakdown of the electricity. All the electricity was gone, and also the railroad between London and Brighton was interrupted. So it was really a terrible situation. I remember that I'd still tried to arrange the banquet after the Congress as a candlelight dinner. But unfortunately, the local authorities didn't allow it because they thought that fire could break out during the dinner. So it was a Congress with lots of excitement and no banquet at the end. But of course, the British Planetary Society, they made everything possible that all participants could return safely home. But for my first Congress, this was really a terrible experience. The second Congress where I was president was in Bangalore, in India, the garden city of India. And it was the first time that I was in India. And therefore, for me, also a very exciting period. And I can tell you that the Congress there was just a dream. It was fantastic. We were spoiled there, people very kind, and dinners and receptions followed one each other. It was just like a fairy tale how we were treated there as guests of India. So this was a complete compensation for my first Congress in Britain. And what I remember also there was a fantastic exhibition. 2 exhibition tents were installed there, one for ESA, for the European Space Agency, and another really great one for CNES, for the French Space Agency. So these were the experience of the 2 congresses, and I must say that for me, both congresses, of course, were exciting, and I really wish the IAF a great future and continued success. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much to Johannes. I mean, it's amazing that despite all these kind of difficult situations which the Federation and I think the whole world went through over all these 70 years, we achieved that we did not miss out a single year to have an IEC. I think this is remarkable, really. Let's now move on, again chronologically, to our next speaker, which is Alvaro Azkaraga. He was president and from 1990 to 1994. He was elected in Dresden at the 41st IEC, and he led the federation through the IECs in Montreal in 91, in Washington in 1992, in Graz, Austria in 93, and in Jerusalem in 94. Alvaro was also the first president that was elected not for a 2-year term, but 2 times 2 years term, so for 4 years. And there were some, at this IEC, when he was elected in Dresden, there were some important innovations introduced. It was very remarkable for the IEC. For the first time, a plenary program was established that was kind of focusing on very general topics at the IEC. And then, as I said before already, the change in the constitution concerning the term of presidencies and vice presidents numbers was also increased. And from then onwards, elections would take place only every 2 years, and at least 3 vice presidents would rotate. So let's now listen to Alvaro about his memories of his presidencies.
Good afternoon. Dear members of the International Astronautical Federation, friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to congratulate the Federation for the 17th anniversary of its foundation. And in those difficult times that we are living today, it's good to remember that the Federation was always a melting point of different sensibilities and political ideas, and that we have a free exchange of ideas in every Congress or every meeting of the Federation. That is because it's necessary to have the cooperation of everybody in the world to really, at the end of the time, to be able to conquer space and to conquer space on behalf of the humanity. Indeed, there were times, like in 1957, in which a Congress was in Spain, but it was the year of the Sputnik. And I recall that Spain was in a strong anti-communist country. And even so, the Soviet delegation was welcome in Spain, and they celebrate with us, and everybody was very happy, their success in space. I may say, as an anecdote, that the idea of the space race is a good idea bring by President Kennedy, because he needs to have the authorization of the Congress to have the necessary funds for his space program, whereas in the Soviet Union they didn't need to have any authorization, only the Secretary General of the Communist Party, and that was it. And therefore, the idea that there was a race, that we were almost in a war, was a convenient tool to maintain the budgetary terms in America and in the majority of Western countries. That was true. But in the Federation, we didn't notice at all any space race, and we had very close and good friendship with many, many of our colleagues from the Soviet Union and from China. I can take a few anecdotes, like that I had, for special reasons, a very good relationship with academician Leonidas Sedov, as I was asked to buy for him certain underwear and silk costumes for his wife. Okay, and I did that with pleasure when we met in United States at the time that I was a graduate student in Princeton. But I can remember also the robbery to the Russian delegation, Soviet delegation in Anaheim in California in 1977, and we all celebrate the good outcome of the robbery without anybody being hurt, with the Russians, and with a lot of drinks and a lot of songs. And I can also remember the day of our Congress in Dresden in 1990. It was the last day of the existence of a country called Democratic Republic of Germany, the DDR. And we were very well treated, with the exception that the next day, at the moment to pay, as the DDR was not anymore existent, we were asked politely, but asked firmly, to pay in Deutschmarks. So in fact, we were asked to pay twice as much as it was contracted. But everything is good for the best of peace and the best of cooperation. I may say, in addition, that I have a difficult times, for instance, with the events in Tiananmen and the subsequent negotiations with the Chinese to delay the Congress in Beijing to a few years later. What we did, but I was scolded twice, once by the Taiwanese because they asked me why I was going to China, and two by the mainland Chinese because I was asked why I had been in Taiwan before coming to China, and it was because in Taiwan was the society that was the founder member on behalf of China of the International Astronautical Federation. Also, we have problems with the Congress in Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem I took care to call the heads of the important space agencies in the world, just to be sure that they will not fail and will go to Jerusalem, even if at times it was an internal situation, difficult situation between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And of course I call Daniel Goldin, obvious, and I call David Levi, as you say, as it is being said in America. David Levi, that was the Director General of the French Space Agency. And the anecdote is that after the conversations and the confirmation of the presence of the French in Jerusalem, David told me, well, but you are calling me because my name is David Levy. And I said, of course, it helps. He says, well, you should know that my family and myself, we are Roman Catholics since the middle of the 16th century. That was quite a reason for me to learn. And finally, I may say that if we like to have a space open for all mankind, it's important, and that goes to our friends of the International Institute of Space Law, that space should be ruled by the laws of countries, but the users should be persons, not nations. So that's my final message, that is PIP, the ones that benefit from space activities, and let PIP do their duties and their work and the utilization of space in the civilized and proper way. And for that, the Federation is an essential tool. As I said in the beginning, is a place in which everybody meets without any restriction. My best regards to all of you, and compliments again to the Federation. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Alvaro. I mean, it's amazing. One thing that strikes me always is that the Federation has never been afraid to go with the IEC to places which are not straightforward, but which are really difficult sometimes. And now our first former president, who is present here with us, Karl Deutsch. He was president from 1994 to 1998, elected in Jerusalem in 1994. And he steered the Federation through the IECs in Oslo in 95, Beijing 96, Turin 97, and Melbourne in 98. During the mid-90s, rapid changes were occurring in the space world, and the IAF started reaching out to countries which had different levels of development in their space activities, and also to countries with totally different cultures. And it's a bit in the continuation of what Alvaro was already initiating and talking about. During Karl's mandate, the IAF achieved a truly global presence, while before we were more just international. The IAF started holding IECs not only in the major developed countries, but also in places where we would, from the very beginning, expect a lower participation than average, and I think that was a great achievement. Karl, please share with us your memories of these times.
Thank you, Christian. I'd certainly like to start by acknowledging the shoulders on whose shoulders I stood, who've just been giving a speech via video. The characteristic of the IAF is that it progresses generation after generation, and you see astonishing changes over time. My first IAF was 40 years ago in Paris. I still remember it well. It was like going into a candy store. We had these wonderful technical sessions. We had some plenary discussions that were going on. We had long trestle tables filled with abstracts that authors carried and paid excess baggage for on the aircraft. It was before the internet. We also had cultural afternoons. In Paris, on Wednesday afternoon, there were no sessions. The delegates climbed onto buses, and we went to Rheims, reviewed the cathedral, and then had a wonderful supper hosted by Tétinguet, where the only accompaniment to the food was champagne. That's part of the culture that I enjoyed. The 80s were a very interesting period. All of a sudden, human spaceflight was up again. The shuttles, space stations, launches, communications, and young persons' aspirations were beginning to be reawakened because now the opportunity for exploration was there. It drove me to decide that what I would like to do is to bring the Congress to Canada. And I succeeded. In 1991, we were in Montreal. And this was the occasion, I was IPC co-chairman during that period. This was the occasion where we formally started the positive interaction with developing nations through the IAF UN workshop. This became an annual workshop, and it's still going today. And due to the generosity of the Canadian Space Agency, we were able to invite 24 people from different developing nations to come and spend 2 days together with experts to see how space applications could help their communities, and afterwards to stay for the duration of the Congress. That was really worthwhile in terms of getting things moving with developing nations and applications. I was IPC co-chair in Montreal and for the World Space Congress in Washington. I joined the Bureau in 1992 and was on the Bureau through until 2000. That's a long time, and I don't think people do it that long anymore. What happened in those 90s where I was really part of the leadership? There was a major shift in the political environment for space activity with the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Unfortunately, it's that very dissolution which is causing today's war. But from the space point of view, it led to the globalization of space in a way that had not happened before. The industry coalesced into new global partnerships. There was a rapid consolidation of the industry that was taking place. We had an explosion of applications. All of a sudden, Earth observations were available at a 1-meter resolution in the civilian market. The communications world was developing the networks, which are all the talk today. Iridium and teledesic were the two. We had the first attempts to build reusable launchers through Kistler. What a period of change. In science, we had the large observatories starting through Hubble. Human spaceflight was moving forward with space stations. And internet was just becoming a force. The IAF needed to respond to these changing times. We hired our first executive director, Claude Gourdet, who was invaluable in moving us into the new era. We started, because of the consolidation happening in the industry, to recruit new members, particularly from the small and medium-sized enterprises. We worked on improving the congresses, in particular the site selection, to make sure that the congresses of the future would all be integrated under one roof to better aid the communications between the exhibitors and the technical presenters. We worked hard to see how with the IAA and the IISL we could make the whole Congress better rounded. Networking and outreach was big, engage the younger generation, engage developing nation, engage opinion formers. We started regional symposia and workshops. And probably important for the ongoing continuation of an IAF, we had to restructure our finances because of the changes in the alliances and the globalization of our members. It was a period of growth for the IAF. Now, the congresses I resided over have already been mentioned. One was in Oslo, and Gau Hovmork, who is still on the bureau, there he is. He was so good at organizing this wonderful Congress in Oslo. Thank you, Guy, very much appreciated. The year after, we're in Beijing, and in terms of political clout, it's hard to imagine a greater welcome. Chairman Jiang Zemin addressed the delegates in the Great Hall of the People in Tiananmen Square. Quite extraordinary. Later in that same week, Premier Li Peng sat down with the agency heads who were there, and after the platitudes had been properly exchanged and the courtesies had been exchanged, he went forward with a detailed exposition and knowledge of space that astounded all who were present. It was remarkable. Melbourne, first time in Australia, and we were greeted on about day 2 with a gas explosion. Thank goodness they had electric kettles in every hotel room in those days. At least we had some hot water to wash by. I'd like to refer to a masterstroke by my immediate successor, who is no longer with us, Tomofino Godais. He worked with ESA and what is now JAXA, and also the Canadian Space Agency, to bring in a lot of young people. There are about 150 people brought to the Congress in Amsterdam, and they were joined by the ISU alumni who had always chosen the IAF and the IAC as their networking forum to suddenly completely change the character of the Congresses for all time. We had mentioned earlier of how much vitality the Congresses have now. I think Godai-san is very much responsible for the trigger that put us on the path of having every generation involved in the IAC. The IAC, the IAF cannot do anything without the hundreds and thousands of volunteers who have worked for it since the beginning. It is extraordinary. It can't do anything without the local organizing committees who put in so much energy each year to make it successful. And it can't survive without a good secretariat. To all of them, I owe a deep debt. My association with the IAF has been a highlight of my career, and I look forward to the 100th celebration with the way that people are able to extend life. I might just be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karl, for this really great insight in your memories of a great period of the Federation. And again, you are mentioning these kind of situations where you think, how can you perform an IEC successfully if things are going all very difficult around? You have mentioned already Mr. Godai, who was immediately following you, but we need to unfortunately jump over this period and come to our next speaker. We're now listening to the memories of IAF President Marcio Barbosa, who was president from 2000 to 2004. He was elected in Rio de Janeiro at the 51st IEC. And he led the Federation through the IECs in Toulouse in 2001, in Bremen, in Houston 2002, in Bremen 2003, and in Vancouver 2004. Marcio's goal during his 2 mandates was to lead the federation into the 21st century successfully and in good order. The federation had to adapt to changing industrial, marketplace and political conditions, and therefore he officially established a strategy group in 2002 to define a detailed path for the IAF for this next decade to come. So let's listen now to Marcio.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcio Barbosa, former president of IAF from 2000 to 2004. It's a pleasure to address IAF family at the occasion of the celebrations associated with its anniversary. In spite of my absence from IAF activities in the last year, I constantly follow the developments of our area, including the activities implemented by the Federation. It's really remarkable the fact that independently of the global difficulties and the natural impact on the development of space activities, our Federation is continuously serving its community with energy and relevant events. So we have to compliment our colleagues from the secretariats, the bureau, the members, the committees, the partner organizations, and the sister societies for the great job and achievements during these 70 years. In particular, I present my sincere compliments to Professor Pascal Ehrenfeld and to the Executive Director Christian Feichtinger for their leadership. Christian, in a recent contact, when he invited me to join you in Paris for the celebration, asked me to say a few words about my mandate. This gave me the opportunity to remember a bit the past with so many good things and challenges, but also with some disappointment and frustration, particularly the departure to another life of many friends and collaborators of our Federation. To represent all of them, I would like to remember the tireless and competent Claude Gourdet, my adorable executive director who left us in 2014. I had the chance as president of IAF of being particularly close to our premises in Paris, since I was also at that occasion the Deputy Director General of UNESCO, working in its headquarters in Paris, a few blocks of IAS Secretariat. This close neighborhood gave me the chance to follow almost on a daily basis the different activities in consideration at that time. It was really enjoyable those years. One great problem we had during my mandate was the realization of the Toulouse ISC in October 2001. A couple of days after the terrible attack to the World Trade Center in US in September 11, we had another terrible event, this time in Toulouse on September 22nd. An explosion in one chemical factory provoked the death of 20 people plus 100 injured. You can imagine the crisis. From one side, some people propose the cancellation of the Congress, others say that you should go ahead despite the second terrorist attack. After several considerations and in contact with the local authorities, we decided to go ahead with the Congress. It was a very brave decision. Of course, some people decided not to fly to Toulouse, but we had the Congress with a very reasonable success despite the initial perspective. If we had cancelled the conduct, the Federation would have gone bankrupt. Many months after that, an investigation provoked that it had been an accident. This incident gave us a good lesson. The Federation could not run alone anymore. The financial risks to have an important event like IAC cancelled due to the unforeseen reasons. With this objective in mind, we decided to modify our bylaws and the contractual terms with the future organizing partners to financially protect the Federation. This was also a very good decision, and I believe that the Federation is still adopting this strategy. I could say many other facts of those years, but it's time to look for the future. Wishing you all the best success and achievements during the celebration. Since we are part of the family of dreamers, let's always reach the stars together on board of our vehicle, our IAF. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcio. You get the feeling that the history of the IEC was a history of crisis, but I would rather say it was a history of overcoming crisis. So it shows the resilience of the IAF. Let's move on now to 2004, when in Vancouver at the 55th IEC, Jim Zimmerman was elected president for a term from 2004 to 2008. let me mention the IECs he was leading, and that was Fukuoka in 2005, Valencia 2006, Hyderabad 2007, and Glasgow in 2008, which was, by the way, my first experience with the IEC. In 2006, during his presidency in Valencia, for the first time, the Congress opened for 2 new categories of participants, the young professionals and the fully retired persons. For the first time, and also with the help of the Space Generation Advisory Council, the Federation developed a dedicated program for young professionals to help young people who are just beginning their careers to get in contact and network with those who pioneered in the development and conduct of space activities around the world. And I'm now very pleased to give the word to Jim Zimmerman.
Thank you, Christian. I'm very, very happy to be here in person to speak with all of you on this 70th anniversary of our federation. I first learned about the IAF in the 1970s, but it wasn't really until 1985 that I actually got to attend an IAC, and the earlier description of it being kind of a candy store, I think, is an apt one. It certainly intrigued me a great deal at that time. In the years that followed, I started to get involved with some of the Federation's volunteer activities. I was asked to join what was then called the Email Award Committee, giving the email award to a person active in international cooperation from around the world. I later joined the Space Exploration Committee. And then in 2004, the AIAA in the US nominated me to be a candidate for IAF president. There were 2 other candidates at the time, and there were concerns then raised about my age and about the fact that some believed, as an American, I might try to move the IAF Secretariat office to the US. Those of you who know me could have probably predicted my answer, which was simply, why would I want to do that? I love Paris, having lived here for 12 years, and certainly I had no intention of changing the location of the Secretariat office. Back in 2004, when I became the president, the volunteer structure of the Federation, our secretariat, our membership, were all very, very different than they are today. We had about 150 members, and several of them were actually not paying their dues and were close to resigning from their membership. Our finances were okay, but frankly, we were, as Marcio noted before me, we were very, very dependent on the success of each IAC to ensure that we could financially survive as a federation. Attendance at an IAC was somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 people, and that's counting everyone in a good year. But even then, we were the global space organization, the one place where space people from all nationalities, all backgrounds, and all ages could participate. In my first year, which was the IAC at Fukuoka, I came to appreciate the growing interest of students and young professionals in our federation. The SGAC, the Space Generation Advisory Council, had just held its second Space Generation Congress in Fukuoka, and I attended that Congress before the IAC. I was just amazed at the interest, enthusiasm, and capabilities of the young people who were participating in that Congress. And so one of the things that we started shortly after I became president is a young professionals program. As was mentioned earlier, we already had students participating. Actually, Philippe Willikens, who isn't here today, but who has participated as a executive director of our federation, was a person who really helped organize that student program, starting in Amsterdam. But we really didn't have any young professionals, and so we created a new category of membership. The young professionals at that time, they were all turning their badge around, so you couldn't see that they actually registered as students because they got the cheaper registration rate. But we created a new category, and we created a new committee to kind of nurture opportunities during the Congress for young professionals. I had a wonderful team of volunteers serving on the Bureau with me. Anne-Marie Mangi is here today. I'm not sure if there are any others from that time period, but it was a great Bureau team. And in that time, we created a number of new committees that the General Assembly was good enough to support. An industry committee, which tried to reach out to and focus on the interests of industry members of the Federation. I twisted Jean-Yves' arm to serve as the chairman of that committee, and I'm very glad I did. Clay Maury was also the chair for a number of years. We created a Congress and Symposium Advisory Committee. We really wanted to have a more objective way of evaluating each of the future IACs so that the candidacies of a future IAC could be presented to the IAF members in a way that they could make a good decision on which one should be selected. We created an Honors and Awards Committee out of that old email committee so that we could broaden the number of awards. And the Bureau, as it worked forward, created a number of technical committees too. We did one on commercial space flight safety, on space security, on knowledge management, space economy, space operations, and the cultural aspects of space activities. That latter one, we had a little hard time convincing the General Assembly that there really were cultural aspects of space activities, but I think over the years they've come to agree. One sad thing about our Bureau, one of the vice presidents took over after me to become IAF president, Bernd Feuerbacher, and as you know, it's sad to say that he can no longer be with us, but he certainly pursued many of the objectives that our Bureau was trying to undertake in those years. One of them was that we encouraged our colleagues from China to become more active in the IAF. At the time, China was already a major player in space activities, but they really hadn't engaged us in the IAF at the time. There was only the China Society was the only member, and I remember our Chinese colleagues urged me to have patience, but today, fortunately, that patience has paid off, and we have a lot greater engagement in terms of membership and participation of China in our federation, which reflects the significant role they have in space activities. We also encouraged South Africa, starting actually in 2005, to consider proposing to hold an IAC in South Africa, and in 2008, the South Africans did make that proposal for Cape Town, and in 2011, the first Congress on the African continent was held. During the 4 years that I was privileged to serve as shall we say, the chief volunteer of our federation, there were a few low points, and there were many highs. The low point that I would choose to mention is the struggle to keep our finances strong, really heavily dependent on the success of the IACs. And we were doing so at a time when we were trying to grow our secretariat and grow our activities. The highs include the amazing growth, as has already been mentioned, in the involvement of young people in our federation activities. I was especially pleased that as one of the last things our Bureau could do in 2008 was to propose that the General Assembly agreed to create what was then called the Youth Grant Program, It's now called the Young Space Leaders Program, to bring young people from emerging countries, young people who would otherwise never have the opportunity to attend an IAC, to participate in our federation, to actually participate in each year's federation. And that program has continued to this day, and I think has expanded quite a bit over the past few years. Another high that I found was really important was the participation of China in our program. China has played a major role in the IAF, and we encouraged them to hold a global space exploration conference in Beijing as kind of a second major event. That was actually held in 2010. Thank you. But probably the greatest high for me over these years has personally been the opportunity to make new friends and to learn from existing friendships on what was important for our space community, and to gain insight and advice that probably helped make our federation better over those years. Despite our diverse backgrounds, and despite the very uncertain times that we all know about in the current moment, we are indeed a part of a global space community. Our federation is a place where we can meet, where we promote, where we compare, and we can commiserate. The Federation also provides opportunities to inspire and to nurture the careers of those who follow in our footsteps. I've been privileged to participate as a volunteer in the work of our amazing Federation, and I hope to continue as an IAF volunteer for many years to come.
Thanks a lot, Jim. And thanks a lot also for mentioning the president that followed you, Bernd Feuerbacher, whose mandate was then actually from 2008 to 2012, and who actually hired me, or was leading the federation when I was hired as an executive director. And I must say that coming into a federation that is so complex like that, you need to have really a great teacher to introduce you to everything. And he was my best teacher, really, to show me how this amazing organization is working. So he will always stay very dear in my, and I think in all our memories. Now we are coming to 2012, to the 63rd IEC in Naples, in Italy, where Kiyoshi Higuchi was elected president, and his term was from 2012 to 2016. And he was responsible for the IEC in Beijing in 2013, in Toronto 2014, in Jerusalem 2015, and in Guadalajara in Mexico in 2016. During Kiyoshi's presidency at the IEC in Toronto, the IAF General Assembly adopted a revised, updated version of the Constitution that changed the mandate of the IAF president and the vice presidents in several aspects. The term of vice presidents and presidents was changed from 2 times 2 years to 1 time 3 year only, and also there was also the establishment of an incoming president, which then Jean-Yves was the first actually to follow this rule, to be elected at the preceding IEC and take over as president and at the next IEC. And also the number of vice presidents was increased from 10 to 12 to give more people the opportunity to support the leadership of the federation, with 4 vice presidents being exchanged every year. Now we'll listen to Kiyoshi Higuchi.
Congratulations on the IAF 70-year anniversary. 70 years is as long as one person's life. My age is a little bit longer than IAF. Therefore, be careful, because the speech of the senior person must be long and redundant. I'm old enough to do so. My presidency was from 2012 to 2016, 2 terms, 4 years. The time when I became president was a kind of turning point in the world space activities. For example, the players were expanding from the limited number of the space agencies to various entities such as small companies, entrepreneurs, and so on. So I recognize that we should change the IAF to adapt to the situation. At the same time, I respect the founding principles of the IAF and its legacy. Therefore, I decided to make my president agenda focusing on the following 4 issues. First, review and upgrade of the IAF constitution and bylaws. Second one, streamline the structure and rules for IAF committees. Third one, connecting emerging, developing, and advanced spacefaring countries. Fourth one, future evolution of the youth programs. There were quite challenging issues, but you are fortunately able to achieve almost all goals, thanks to the work of the professional bureau members and many volunteers. Why we were able to do it? I think the time of the work was just right, and some consensus on these issues had gradually been building in the community. Therefore, it was not hard to get support from the IAF community. Necessary persons were there where we needed them. Let me tell you about a few persons who significantly contributed to the agenda. For Constitution Amendment, Mr. Kaiwe Schrogel and Ms. Leslie Jane Smith. For streamlining administrative committees, Mr. Karl-Heinz Goldsbo. For technical committees, Ms. Maria Antonietta Perino. For youth program, Ms. Lynn Wingwells. And Mr. Jim Zimmerman and Mr. Janjak Dodan gave me a timely and very strong support and valuable suggestions. They are all irreplaceable persons for me. I should not forget one more person, Ms. Masami Onoda. She worked very hard as my right-hand woman. At last but not least, the IAF Secretariat team, headed by Mr. Christian Feuchtinger, were instrumental in all of these efforts. It is impossible to list all names of the contributors in this message, but a lot of useful suggestions were proposed from not only my friend, but also from voluntary persons under a very open and democratic atmosphere. Several important persons passed away during my presence. It was unforgettable and very sad for me. I thought that it was another sign of the times moving on. Professor Vladimir Kopal was IAF General Counsel for a long time, a legend, a walking encyclopedia of the IAF, and professional in space law. Fortunately, he strongly supported my present agenda, especially on the amendment of the IAF Constitution. He sent to me a letter to support and encourage my present agenda, even from his sickbed. It's my treasure. A good gentleman, former Honorable Secretary, Mr. Hans Hoffman, he taught me how important the discipline of bureau was. I never forget his gentle and tolerant look and behavior. Mr. Bernd Feuerbacher, former president, also passed away last year. I'd like to pay them my deepest respect. While the world is rapidly changing and diversifying, we should maintain important role of IAF, but be flexible against the changing world and keep the open and democratic atmosphere. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot, Kiyoshi. And following these changes in the constitution, in 2015 at the IEC in Jerusalem, Jean-Yves Le Gall was elected incoming president, taking then up the presidency at the IEC in Guadalajara in 2016 for a term of 3 years until 2019. Jean-Yves led the federation through the IACs in 2017, in Adelaide, in Bremen in 2018, and in Washington, D.C. in 2019, which was a very special one because it was the 70th anniversary edition of the IEC. Jean-Yves has developed his IAF Global Innovation Agenda, putting the focus of all IAF activities specifically on fostering the principles of 3G diversity, 3G standing for geography, generation, and gender within the Federation and the space sector. I'm very pleased to hand over to you, Jean-Yves.
So good afternoon to all of you, and I want to say that it is of course a pleasure to be here with you to mark this 70th anniversary and to be here in spite of the health situation and these very turbulent times. In fact, my connection with IAF goes back to 1969. This time I was 10 years old and I was in front of the TV watching Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. But I was also an avid reader of Tintin, who, as everybody knows, got there before Neil. And that year, I was reading Flight 714 to Sydney, which starts with Tintin, Captain Haddock, and Professor Calculus, Calculus it's in English for tournesol in French, on their way to Australia for the International Astronautical Congress. Please check into your records and you will see that it is the truth. So for me it was a kind of a welcome to the IAF world. And 20 years later, in 1989, I would attend my first ISC in Spain, in Torremolinos. And I've been to every ISC since, with the exception of Dubai last year, when COVID unfortunately stopped me in my tracks. It was during my tenure as chairman and CEO of Arianespace in the mid-2000s that several IAF officials, and including Jim, asked me to contribute actively to their efforts. And at this time, launchers were a key component of international cooperation. And it is how it came about that I had the honor of leading IAF Industrial Relations Committee. And which is no doubt why some years later, when I was president of CNES and the chair of ISA Council, I was approached to stand for election as IAF president. As Christian said, I was duly elected in 2015 in Jerusalem. Being elected in such a symbolic place is something that really resonated with me. As you probably know, French President François Mitterrand once said of this region of the globe that so many things have happened in such a small place. And my election was a very, very small thing, but it was important for me. And at the time of the election, the international situation was already in flux, and there were real questions surrounding our common future, and this is why we decided that we had to transform the IAF for good. And it was in fact this goal that drove the 3G agenda for gender, geography, and generation that I proposed on taking up the presidency. An agenda that I was pleased and honored to set out as the next 3 ISCs in Adelaide, in Australia, in Bremen, in Germany, and of course in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., which coincided with the 50th anniversary of the lunar landing. So we had with us Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, and it was the 50th anniversary of the landing of Neil, of course, not Tintin. The decisions we took under my presidency illustrated this 3G agenda. We decided that IAC would go to Dubai, a first for an Arab country, and it has been the case last year, and I really regret missing it. We elected a lady to head the IAF, Pascal, and I want to congratulate her once again for her election and for everything she has achieved since. And we have opened IAF to lots of young people, and we are seeing a lot less gray hair now, and not only because of the miracles hairdressers perform these days. Of course, the pandemic hit us like everyone else. 2020 was the first IAC to take place in cyberspace. Paris is hosting it this year, and we planned to do it last year as CNES celebrated its 60th anniversary. But I am sure that it will be better than what it could have been, and good luck, Philippe and Lionel. And with the event set to go to Baku in 2023, we'll be marking the 50th anniversary of the last IAC held there in 1973, and good luck, Samadine. All in all, I am very glad to see that today, at the ripe old age of 70, IAF is fired more than ever before by the drive, ambition, and enthusiasm of a 20-year-old. I am sure that Clay, with the support of Christian and this fantastic team, will take us to the tops. And it's great to see so many distinguished dignitaries here to mark their affection for IAF, no doubt because since we're in Paris, we can say, when you're in love, you always feel like you are 20. Thank you.
Let me stay a few more minutes with Jean-Yves, please. Last year, the IAF created a new award, the IAF Excellence in International Cooperation Award, to recognize an individual who has demonstrated excellence in their efforts to promote and facilitate engagement and cooperation in the space sector. That's how it is defined. And the first ever recipient of this IAF Excellence in International Cooperation Award in 2021 was our past president and honorary ambassador Jean-Yves Le Gall, who has been awarded for his networks and collaborations with numerous stakeholders at political, institutional, industrial, and academic levels, encouraging them to work together to create a coherent space strategy. And at the opening ceremony at the IEC in Dubai last year, Jean-Yves was recognized with this award, but as he has mentioned, he could not participate in person there. And we kept the trophy in our office, and I'm now very happy to ask our president to hand over officially this trophy and the certificate to Jean-Yves. Congratulations, and thank you very much. Yeah, it works.
If you allow me, as I said, having the IAC in Dubai was the first achievement of the 3G, and I've been working a lot at the IAF to prepare this IAC. And it has been something very, very tough to be obliged to stay in Paris in my bed, not to sleep, but because I was really sick, instead of coming to Dubai, but that's life. But it was very bitter for me, and thank you for this award, because it's... thank you. Thank you.
You'll Pascal stays already here. It brings us now to the present time with Pascal, President since 2019 for a term of 3 years until actually this September. Pascal was elected already in 2018 at the IEC in Bremen, and she took over in Washington in 2019. Under her leadership, we had a few more crises. The COVID-19 pandemic forced us in 2020 to take this challenge as an opportunity and host and organize the first ever cyberspace edition of an IEC. And in 2021, last year, we were then happily getting back again to an in-person IEC in Dubai, which she was responsible for, and she's now leading us towards the IEC here in Paris in 2022. She also announced and elaborated her IAF Global Advocacy Agenda 2019-2022, which is focusing on the global nature of space and the continuously evolving space environment with new actors and space entrepreneurs. Pascal, please.
Yes, thank you very much. And we are running a little bit out of time. We're a little bit late in the agenda today, but I think you have also seen the evolution of the IAF. You have seen this fantastic video, how everything started, very small with just a few countries. And you have heard really the witnesses of this evolution, many of the previous presidents of the IAF and their messages. And yes, a lot of crises, that's true, including also in my term, but we seem to have mastered them. So there was always this spirit of, yeah, there were lows, but we overcame them, and we have been to places. We have been in Jerusalem, I remember, when there was unrest. We have been in Hyderabad when there was unrest. We have been in so many places, and we made it happen when we tried to strengthen this dialogue. And I don't want to make it too long, because you have heard already about many of the conferences, but I remember that it was Jean-Yves actually announced my incoming presidency in this amazing town hall of Bremen, which I think everybody remembers, and I took the torch in Washington, D.C., which is my second hometown. And I took office at the same time together with 3 female vice presidents, namely with Steganit, Maury, and additionally, and Dominique. And that was really at this time with a very, very strong gender balanced bureau. And I hope that these efforts will actually continue in the future. So we have already mentioned the cyberspace edition, and I just feel again how that was, because we made the IAF Bureau here in Paris into a studio, and everybody which has visited us knows a little bit how the office looks like. And we had extremely strong COVID restrictions at that time, so we had continuously masked. The only one which took off the mask for seconds or minutes, these were Christian and me. And I see that many people in this room, and also the team here behind the cameras and so on, was actually making that happen. And it was really an exciting thing. Everything was closed outside because of lockdown. And we made this happen. And I must honestly say, making such a virtual remote conference for the first time, and without practically any glitches, was really an incredible achievement, and really the strength of everybody who helped to make that happen. It was something which has been decided in a very, very short time scale, because at that time we did not know, we always hoped that things would actually happen in person. And we could reach an audience which was much, much larger than we could reach in person, because it was offered for free. And so we could reach, I think, 13,000 people all over the world in, I think, 135 countries. And this is what the pandemic actually have brought, that we are reaching out even beyond. So IAF is a networking place, but I think this was a really fantastic, though very unusual thing, but I remember it very warmly. We were tightly packed under COVID restrictions, and it was exciting, and we were running around, and I want to thank everybody who made that happen, because I see that so many people, even here behind the camera, actually made that happen. So we have, unfortunately, some of the spring meetings in remote, and it's the first time we meet again this year, and I think everybody is looking forward to. We had the GLEX conference in St. Petersburg, also very successful, with the participation, and I think more than 16 astronauts there in organization with Roscosmos, and we have many activities done during the pandemic, although we didn't have such an easy time. But I want to thank everybody from the vice presidents, from the volunteer community, and from the secretariat, of course, that we made these activities. So they were, of course, related to the Global Advocacy Agenda 2019 to 2022 in order to support and facilitate global space governance, stimulate and propel global space economy, and influence and foster global space advocacy. And we launched in the midst of the COVID pandemic several initiatives. For instance, for the young professionals, the Launchpad mentorship program, which is for mid-career participants, and has really, I think, shown a really good result in its first year. It's now in its second year. We have also started the initiative ISAP, and bringing down space to Earth, bringing Earth up to space, which supports the new space economy and this entrance of new space companies, and also space companies not always related to space, but working with space data. So this is a very important aspect which we certainly will continue in the future. Jean-Yves has touched on the initiative which was actually founded during his presidency, the 3G. We actually really tried to strengthen this initiative, and I'm sure that everybody also after me will continue to do that. We had a very successful program, and what I still want to mention, that we initiated the G&F Space Conversation series, where we are trying to bridge this time where we could not connect in person. Like many organizations, we have offered space dialogue remotely with this G&F conversation series during the time we could not meet, and I think it was very interesting. Many companies and panels and so on were held practically weekly or sometimes in bi-weekly mode. So some very small things, but very important things have to be mentioned. We have been very fortunate that IAF was selected to receive 1 million from Blue Origins Club for the future, which will be invested in more opportunities for young professionals and also for space activities, but also to attend the International Astronautical Congress. And then literally between Delta and Omicron, we held a very successful conference, the 72nd International Astronautical Congress, organized by IAF and of course with the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center in October 2021 for the first time in the Arab world. And we had more than 5,000 delegates, I remember, 90 exhibitors, and it was a difficult time, but at the end we all came together, and I have heard really only positive impressions of that conference. We met again. It was a wonderful venue. It was warm. It was, everybody was looking forward to meet and to network again. And we had also this conjunction with the Expo, the World Exhibition at the same time. So it was really a great meeting, and we thank everybody who helped. I think there were 110 countries which were represented at the ISC in Dubai. And we have mentioned that already. We thank you very much that you are here today for this 70th anniversary. And our next endeavor is actually very far and very high in altitude. It is Quito in Ecuador. We will meet there for the second global conference on space for emerging countries with our member Sideralis. And this is, you have seen this theme going through all the talks of the previous presidents. And also Christian, this reaching out to emerging and developing space countries and helping them and to continue to do space activities to get integrated in larger space endeavors. This is a very, very important part of the mission. And as has been mentioned several times, we will meet for the 4th time in Paris. Yeah? After the first, you have seen nice pictures and videos of the first ISC in 1950, 1963, 1982, and again in 2022 from the 18th to the 22nd of September, we will meet here in Paris for the 4th time at the Paris Convention Center. And as I said also this morning, I really want to express my deepest concern about these current conditions which we have. I have to say that I have been working 30 years in international cooperation in space. I think it is difficult for everybody to digest what is happening right now. And we have talked about this already at the beginning. And I think we hope that in this time of conflict and disagreement, we, the IAF, can contribute as an organization for peace on Earth and in outer space. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pascal. This brings us actually to the end of this first panel. I thank you very much. We are a bit late in time, so still we will have a coffee break now, but I would like to ask you all to try to be back here at 16:15. Let's make it short so that we can catch up a bit of time. And I see already the Director General of the European Space Agency, Josef Aschbacher, has in the meantime joined us. Very warm welcome, and we look forward to hearing you also at the second panel. Thanks you once again to all our panelists here, and please enjoy the coffee.